A few weeks ago, almost a month ago, I asked if you all wanted to see a video about the perfect find or I'm thinking of ending things, and you all spoke. A few of you spoke. It was neck and neck for a second, but I'm thinking of ending things one. Hopefully by the time I take a screenshot of the poll, that will still be the case because it's been so long. But a few weeks ago, I'm thinking of ending things one, and I was so excited because this is a movie that I loved when it came out. Was it 2020? I can't even remember. But when it first came out, I watched it on Netflix and immediately fell in love with it, but didn't find out until recently that it was based on a book. And so I've had it on my list of books to read and movies to rewatch in order to make a video for a long time. And so the time came and I read it and loved the book and rewatched the movie and loved it again, and then got intimidated because it's such... Where do I even begin? How do I even begin to start about this book and movie? I got intimidated, and so it's taken me 3 weeks to finally sit down and film this. So I must say, this is not going to be a I'm thinking of ending things, ending explained, because I have no idea what was going on. I know it happened because I read it. Do I know why it happened? No. Do I know how it happened? Absolutely not. Do I get the metaphors? Of course not. But I like talking about things, and so that's what we're going to do. These are going to be my hypotheses about this book's ending. And I hope you're happy with that. If you're excited to just be here to hear my ramblings about this book and share your thoughts in the comments below, let me know. Give this video a thumbs up, make sure you subscribe, and let's get into it. Before we get into it, my name is Serena, and welcome back to the Book to Movie Club. Let's talk about I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. So I'm Thinking of Ending Things was published in 2016, and it was written by Ian Reid, a Canadian author who I've talked about before. This is the second book I've read by him. If you haven't seen my previous video about Foe, the comparison of that book to movie, he wrote that, and I talk more about Ian in that video. So go check that out after you finish watching this if you want to know more about him and his writings. But I'm Thinking of Ending Things was actually his debut novel, which is wild to me because it's such a good book. It's a psychological thriller, and we'll get into more about it. I have only read 2 of his books, but I definitely think this one is my favorite of the 2. And I think he has a couple more. Maybe he only has 3. Anyway, go check out that video to find out, to get the answer. But yes, this came out in 2016, and it is about a woman who is going to visit her boyfriend's family for the first time. She's dating this guy named Jake. She doesn't have a name, which I didn't realize, and I feel very silly not realizing that in the book she doesn't have a name. I borrowed the book from the library, so I've had to return it already. I can't even look back and confirm that, but apparently, according to Wikipedia, she doesn't have a name. It says an unnamed girlfriend of Jake. So they are going to visit his family, and the entire car ride to their house, in her mind, she's having this conversation with herself about thinking about ending things. She's thinking about ending her relationship with Jake, who she's only been dating. She can't even remember how long it's been. She's like, he's a nice guy. I don't know why I'm feeling this way, but something in her is making her think that she should end it. While they're on this road trip, she keeps getting phone calls from herself. The phone number that pops up is her name, I think, or is it her phone number? And when she answers, it's some man just rambling about who knows what. What is he talking about? I'll never know. And so she just ignores his calls, and I'm still trying to put the pieces together on that one. So anyway, we'll come back to that. They go to Jake's parents' house, and she is immediately uncomfortable from the very beginning. They're being weird. The house is weird. The situation is weird. She looks at a photo on the wall and sees herself and asks Jake, who is this? And he's like, that's me when I was younger. And that was the first inkling in my mind because I had already watched the movie previously. But as I was reading this, I was like, are they the same person? Is she Jake? Does she not have a name because she isn't real? I don't know. Anyway, the parents are weird. And I'm really trying hard not to morph the things that happen in the movie with the things that happen in the book. And the son is doing whatever it wants right now. I apologize. So they have dinner with Jake's parents. She explores the house a bit, finds some other weird things, and decides that she's ready to go. I don't want to spoil everything, and it would take too long to go into all the details about what happens in the house. But it's a weird situation, and she's trying to pretend that it wasn't. She's like, no, your parents were great. And he's like, are you sure? Because he knows they're weird. But on their way back to the city that they came from, they decide to stop for ice cream. And in this ice cream shop, a girl looks at her and is like, I'm worried for you. And the main character is like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? But she leaves before she can get an answer. That's creepy. They continue on, and Jake finds another reason to stop before they can get home, and they pull up to some seemingly abandoned high school because it's in the middle of a winter storm. Jake gets out of the car and doesn't come back. So his girlfriend has to get out and follow him into the school to try and find him, and that's when everything goes wrong, basically. She never comes out. Neither of them do. Actually, no one leaves the school ever again. There's a janitor working. Guys, bear with me. There's a janitor working in the school, and in the end, they like morph together into one person. And I'm like, Jake is the janitor. The janitor is Jake. And she is also Jake. And she was Jake the entire time. But as we go along, we find out that the janitor is also thinking of ending things. But in his case, he's thinking of ending his life. And I couldn't help but think maybe that's what she was thinking the entire time as well. Maybe she was thinking of ending Jake the entire time, not ending the relationship. But she was Jake. So she's talking, in her mind, she's talking about all these great qualities about Jake. But she knows that Jake's life is going to end. So maybe she was trying to talk herself out of Jake's life ending, her life ending, the janitor's life ending, rather than actually talking about the relationship ending. The book flashes between present day and the past. The past is the main part of the book. And in present day, we hear two people talking about someone. And by the end of it, we realize it's two detectives, I think, talking about this janitor that is dead in the closet. He has taken his own life. And I think that's Jake. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know. What do I know about this book? Absolutely nothing. Even though I don't understand what happened, I really enjoyed this book. I think having watched the movie first was helpful. And there were parts, because I knew kind of what was going to happen as I was reading the book, I wanted to highlight things so badly, but I didn't own this book. But I wanted to highlight things because I was like, is this foreshadowing? Like, is this going to come back up at the end? And I wish I could have been able to. I should have just marked it up. I should have bought the book. In my handy dandy book club journal, one of the first things I wrote was that this feels like one long metaphor. There are conversations that happened between the girlfriend and Jake on their road trip that they're talking about these metaphors, or they're having these philosophical debates that I, once you're deep in the book, realize are about the situations that they're in. And there's this metaphor that's given, and I wish I had the quote, but of course I don't. And I was like, this is what's happening right now. This is what's happening. And so the whole thing just feels like one huge metaphor for life. And for some reason, I loved it. I think I give this book a 5-star. I think this is my first 5-star book of the year, because it really just got me. It got me. It was scary at parts as well. So I started off reading the physical book, and then I went back and forth between reading and listening to the audiobook. And there was a part where I was listening to the audiobook when the girl morphs into the janitor and she's asking a question. I think she's like, why? And then as they're converging, it transitions to a male voice. And it was so creepy. Mind you, I was home alone. And I was so creeped out. I was like, absolutely not. But I think I loved it. I think I really liked it. So yeah, it gets a 5 stars. Don't be mad at me, y'all. I hope this made sense. But if anything, this goes to show that you should read the book yourself because it's fantastic, and I can't do it justice. But let's talk about the movie, shall we? So the book is described as a psychological thriller, and the movie is described as a surrealist psychological thriller. And those surrealist themes are not just like in the main themes of the film itself, but also in how it's visually directed and designed and all of those things. There's one scene in particular at the end when everyone is older, and instead of putting people in prosthetics or just having a crowd full of older people, they have this like gray makeup on everyone. Like the makeup is they made everyone age by just like putting makeup on them, and they're like gray and their lines are black, their hair is painted gray, and it's very interesting. It looks so silly, but I loved it so much. The film was written and directed by Charlie Kaufman. He also wrote Being John Malkovich and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which I have watched, and I don't know if I enjoyed it. I think I need to give it a second watch. It was just sad. It was sad and confusing. But yes, that's actually one of my boyfriend's favorite movies. But yeah, he has a great list of films behind him. The movie is starring Jessie Buckley as Lucy, the girlfriend. Jesse Plemons plays Jake. It must have been very confusing on set to have 2 Jessies there the whole time, but they were fantastic. Toni Collette plays his mother, and David Thewlis, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, plays his father. And isn't this such an adorable picture of him? I had to choose this one. It's so good. So the movie starts with the main character Lucy's kind of internal dialogue. In the book, she's having this internal dialogue while they're on their road trip. But in the movie, things are happening and the movie's kind of being set up with her internal monologue starting. And in these scenes, there's this older man going about his day while these things are happening, while she's saying these things, while this internal monologue is happening, which further makes me conclude that they are the same person, but I digress. When they get to the parents' house, the parents start aging so quickly, so they're weird, very strange. There's a scene with a dog, which I think is perfect. Jake is talking about some scratches on a door in his house, and he's like, oh, it's just from the dog. And Lucy's like, I have not seen a dog this whole time. What are you talking about? And then out of nowhere, a dog appears and starts shaking and never stops. Just does not stop shaking. And I'm like, fantastic. I love this film. And so the parents are just as weird as they are in the book, but things become even weirder because they start aging and they just never stop. And it goes back and forth between them being young to one of them being young, the other one being older, and vice versa. And then before they leave, the dad is like on his deathbed, and it seems completely normal. I don't know how that happened, but yeah, it's a very strange film. It's very odd, it's peculiar, and that kind of theme of life passing quickly happens again towards the end. There's an interpretive dance that takes place, and it's basically going through telling the story of Lucy and Jake's life together. And during that scene, the janitor is a separate person. And again, I'm going to spoil this. The janitor stabs the dancer version of Jake, which now makes me believe maybe they're not all the same person. The ending of the movie is actually different from the ending of the book, so maybe I'll stop talking about it there. Does Jake die? Does Lucy die? Does the janitor die? I literally just finished watching it and I'm still so confused. I'm still so confused. If you can't tell by now, I have no idea what happened. In doing research and trying to find out what this movie is actually about, my hypothesis was that they were all one person. Which one of the people, I truly don't know. I think I thought that the woman was also Jake and that Jake was also the janitor. So they're all Jake, right? That's what happens, and that's what's going on in my head. But I read an article by Vanity Fair trying to explain the ending of the movie, trying to explain the movie in general. And apparently, this whole thing is just a scenario that the janitor has made up in his mind. Now, could the janitor still be Jake? Possibly. Or he's just so lonely that he has made up these two people and all of this is happening in his head. Other people online are trying to have discussions about it and say that some people say that all of this is happening in Lucy's head. Some people say all of this is happening in Jake's head. And some people say all of it's happening in the janitor's head. I'm going to go with what Vanity Fair has said. And no, actually, I take that back. I'm going to go with what I said. That they're just all the same person and nothing else even matters. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. But when it comes to the age-old question of which is better, these are hard to compare because the start of the film, the first 2 hours of it, I can't even remember how long it is, but I think the majority of the film is very much the book just created into a movie. But the last 20 minutes is where it like diverges a bit and does its own thing. I think it does that thing beautifully, but I also really liked the end of the book. And so I'm going to say it's a tie. I think you can't choose because they're both done so well. Those are my thoughts on I'm thinking of ending things. I hope you enjoyed it. I think this is the most chaotic video I've done so far, and I hope the most chaotic I'll ever do. Hopefully things go up from here. Next up, there are 3 things on the timeline for me. 3 books. First, The Talented Mr. Ripley, which has been made into a mini-series on Netflix, which I'm very excited for. Then we have We Were the Lucky Ones, which is a show on Hulu. And last but not least, Under the Bridge, which is also on Hulu. Those are the 3 things I think I'm going to be reading next and making videos about. So subscribe so you don't miss them. I hope to see you then.